Day 3 of the government shutdown, when some much more urgent, more dire news came out of the nation's capital this afternoon. A report of shots fired, people wounded on Capitol Hill following a high-speed chase starting near the White House through the city alongside the famous landmarks. A woman was at the wheel of a black Infiniti coupe with her toddler in the car. At one point, she briefly stopped and was surrounded by officers with weapons drawn. Here's the scene as recorded by a camera crew on Capitol Hill. It all ended a short distance away. Tonight, the driver, a woman from Stamford, Connecticut, is dead. Her one-year-old daughter in protective police custody. And think about this, the U.S. Capitol Police who responded today aren't getting paid because of the government shutdown. A crisis atmosphere in Washington on top of what's already going on there. It's where we begin tonight with our Justice correspondent Pete Williams in our D.C. newsroom. Pete, good evening.
Brian, good evening. This unfolded very quickly in a city that's still jumpy from the shooting at the Washington Navy Yard a few weeks ago. Tonight, investigators say the woman at the center of it all did not have a gun. The only shots, officials say, were fired by law enforcement officers. Investigators are working to explain why a woman who had been stopped by Capitol Police suddenly rushed away as police opened fire. But undeterred by the gunfire, for reasons officials have yet to understand, she kept on driving, leading a chase in the streets around the U.S. Capitol as authorities put the area on lockdown and rushed tourists and others away. Officials say the security scare began around 2:15 when a car driven by a woman from Connecticut hit a security barrier at one of the checkpoints that ring the White House. For reasons that are not yet clear, the woman then drove off at a very high speed, pursued by uniformed officers of the Secret Service.
This unauthorized vehicle approached the checkpoint. Our officers acted appropriately. The vehicle then fled and, in fleeing, struck one of our officers as it departed that initial scene.
She drove up Pennsylvania Avenue, going through red lights, reaching a speed of more than 80 miles an hour, officials say, and heading for some reason toward the U.S. Capitol, the one area of the city with the heaviest police presence on the streets. Capitol Police managed to stop the car at the foot of Capitol Hill, but officials say the driver then backed up and sped away as the officers opened fire. The driver continued speeding on the streets near the Capitol. Moments later, the car crashed outside a Senate office building. Police again fired shots.
It was like a series of maybe 5 or 6, and then a pause, and then a few more. Really? And that was it.
I hear boom, 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 as, the gunfire is unloading.
She was later pronounced dead. A Capitol policeman was injured when his car hit a barrier in the chaos of the chase. Officials say an infant was in the woman's car, but they say was not seriously injured. Tonight, state and federal investigators are searching a home in Stamford, Connecticut that they believe is connected to the woman. Members of a bomb squad were involved in the search as well. Investigators are also searching her car and interviewing anyone who knew her, looking for a motive. And tonight, several law enforcement and congressional officials say the woman they identify as 34-year-old Miriam Carey had a history of mental issues, but they're working now to determine why she was in Washington and why she headed for the White House in the first place. Brian.
Pete Williams in our D.C. newsroom tonight with the latest. Pete, thanks. NBC's Kelly O'Donnell, who, as our Capitol Hill correspondent, of course, has been covering the government shutdown, found herself locked down with everybody else during the height of today's emergency. Kelly, good evening.
Good evening, Brian. The political drama was quickly, abruptly overtaken by all of this. Now, the Capitol Dome is just off to my left. I am on a balcony of a Senate office building, and below me is one of the streets where this chase took place. And the lights behind me, that will show you where the car is right now and what officials are calling the second crime scene. This was scary for visitors and for lawmakers, staffers, and media. This was a workplace emergency. On a summer-like October day, sudden fear. Visitors began to flee.
I just heard 4 or 5 gunshots, and then this whole swarm of police cars, just getting 20, maybe even more.
As soon as you heard those, I mean, it was on it.
My colleague Luke Russert
I'm watching out the window. Tourists are being told to run away.
explained on MSNBC what he saw as it happened.
I immediately jumped up, looked out the window. I saw upwards of 40 or 50 tourists immediately hit the ground, all laying down.
Police surrounded the vehicle, had their guns drawn, had the passenger's door open, telling the person to get out.
Senators who rushed back inside
There's an ambulance that has now responded.
were witnesses to the chaos.
Well, we heard pops. We didn't know we heard. You heard pops, 3, 4, 5 pops, probably. I don't know if they were shots or not.
A frantic energy took over. An alarm sounded with these ominous words: report of gunfire.
These are live pictures. Kelly, are you there?
I am, Tamron. We have been given a shelter-in-place order here on Capitol Hill. We're told we must stay in our offices under lockdown. I snapped a photo of the warning as it flashed on all screens inside the Capitol building. The U.S. Capitol Police spokesman is telling me there are reports of injured U.S. Capitol Police officers. Working to find out more for you, Tamron. One officer was injured in a car crash at what police are calling the first crime scene. At the second location, visitors saw a face-off.
They had the passenger door open. Their gun was pointed directly in.
Roughly 40 minutes later, for those of us working inside, the relief of an all clear.
Senate and House are both reopened.
Majority Leader Harry Reid, himself a former U.S. Capitol Police officer, reopened the Senate floor with a message from that injured officer.
He's hurt. But he said, I'm paraphrasing, but not much. He said, I work every day to make sure you're safe.
And in the House, politics briefly on pause.
I join the Majority Leader in expressing our gratitude to the Capitol Police.
And that was sustained applause for, certainly. And I can tell you that both the House and Senate will get back to their normal business tomorrow, but the investigation goes on. Again, one U.S. Capitol Police officer, one Secret Service agent also were injured. And what we can tell you is there is a return to normal, but boy, has it been one heck of a day. Brian?
Kelly O'Donnell on Capitol Hill for us tonight. Kelly, thanks. And as we said, this happened on day 3 of this federal government shutdown. When this day started, there seemed to be no end of it in sight. Our chief White House correspondent, political